and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. Here are some stories making rounds beyond the continent. We begin with President Donald Trump, as he has threatened Russia with steep tariffs and announced a rejuvenated pipeline for American weapons to reach Ukraine. This move hardens his stance toward Moscow after months of frustration about unsuccessful negotiations for ending the war. President Trump made the announcement during a meeting with NATO chief Mark Rutte, while expressing his displeasure with Russia. Trump said he would implement severe tariffs unless a peace deal is reached within 50 days.
One of the reasons that you're here today is to hear that we are very unhappy, I am, with Russia. But we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You'd call them secondary.
Meanwhile, President Trump has pledged more weapons for Ukraine under a deal with NATO. Now, this comes after the U.S. president told Russia to end its Ukraine war within 50 days or face massive new economic sanctions. Trump and Rutte also unveiled a deal under which the NATO military alliance would buy arms from the United States, including Patriot anti-missile batteries, and then send them to Ukraine to help it battle Russia's invasion.
Billions of dollars worth of military equipment is going to be purchased from the United States, going to NATO, etc. And that's going to be quickly distributed to the battlefield, Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, the 500 is, sort of meaningless after a while, because at a certain point it doesn't matter. It's not going to be, it's 100. 100 is going to serve the same function. But yeah, I have it at 100%. They may have it, I don't know what they're going to end up with. They may have it at 100 too. They may have it at 500.
Basically what the president is saying, that he is willing, of course, taking consideration what the US needs itself. So it's not that you can have a shopping list and you can order whatever you want, because the US has to make sure that the US keeps his hand on what the US needs, also to keep the whole world safe, because in the end you are the police agent of the whole world. You're the most powerful nation on earth, the most powerful military on earth. But given that, the US has decided to indeed massively supply Ukraine with what is necessary through NATO. Europeans 100% pay.
Now, it's official. U.S. President Donald Trump is heading back to the UK for a rare second state visit. Buckingham Palace has confirmed the dates, and this time he'll be welcomed by King Charles III at Windsor Castle. Our international correspondent Afia Hagen reports on what's planned and why this visit is already stirring debate.
Donald Trump is returning to the UK, and this time Windsor Castle will roll out the red carpet for a 3-day state visit from the 17th to the 19th of September. Buckingham Palace confirmed the news today, saying the King and Queen will officially host the President and First Lady Melania Trump. This won't be Trump's first time at Windsor. He had tea with the late Queen Elizabeth II in 2018 and was hosted at Buckingham Palace for a full state visit in 2019. But the return invitation is unusual. It marks an unprecedented second state visit for a US president.
This is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented. And I think that just symbolises the strength of the relationship between us. So this is a very special letter.
With Buckingham Palace under renovation and following last week's visit from French President Emmanuel Macron, Windsor has become the preferred setting for royal diplomacy. There had been speculation Mr. Trump might address Parliament during his visit, a privilege often extended to visiting heads of state. But with MPs away for the party conference season, that now looks unlikely. Meanwhile, preparations are underway in Scotland, where Police Scotland expect the President to visit his golf resorts in Aberdeenshire or Ayrshire. That trip is expected to require major security planning and support from other UK forces. Further details of the September visit are still to come, but what's clear, Windsor is preparing to welcome the US President once again with all the pomp and pageantry the monarchy can offer. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagan.
Now for more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagan herself. Afia, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. If you will, do tell us, why is a second state visit for President Trump to the UK so significant? Afia, I hope you can hear us. Unfortunately, I don't think she can, so maybe we'll save that conversation for a later time. Now, let's take a short break now, and when we come back, we've got more inside of Beyond the Continent. Welcome back. Now, from previously, we talked about President Trump's second visit to the UK in Windsor Castle, as Buckingham Palace has approved dates for his second visit. We were to be joined by international correspondent Afia Hagan, who joins us now. Afia, if you're there, good evening. Thank you very much for joining again. I had asked from earlier why a second state visit for President Trump is significant.
Yes, it's super significant because no sitting president in his second term has been invited back for this full state visit. So President Barack Obama and George W. Bush both came back to the UK and visited with the royal family, but were treated to tea at Windsor Castle with Queen Elizabeth II during her reign, but weren't given the full bells and whistles, as you will, of this second state visit, the fest, as Donald Trump himself is calling it. So this is really, really unprecedented and very, very significant. I think this is about the UK government really wanting to make sure we curry favour with the United States and nurture the so-called special relationship.
So, Afia, what's going to be different from this second state visit? What should we expect that would be any different?
Well, it's all about the razzmatazz, right? It's all about the pomp and pageantry. Nowhere really does it quite like the United Kingdom. So royal guards, horses, gold carriages, all the rest of it. A full state dinner as well we can expect, with celebrities as well as senior members of the royal family. We don't have the full details yet. Those will be released in the coming weeks ahead of the dates of the 17th to the 19th of September. But like I say, it will be the full bells and whistles, the full ceremonial welcome, and the state banquet with all the senior members of the royal family. So King Charles, Queen Camilla, and the Prince and Princess of Wales will definitely be in attendance.
So this will be an important diplomatic moment for Charles, King Charles himself. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, this is a hugely significant moment for King Charles. Last year, the monarch didn't really get to stretch his legs when it came to diplomacy because of his cancer diagnosis. So visits to parts of the Commonwealth had to be put off, and those have taken place. So this year, you know, we had that visit to Canada where he did the speech from the throne at the opening of Parliament. And he really has played the part of diplomat-in-chief this year especially. So towing a very difficult line where he is the King of the United Kingdom as well as Canada. And at a time where Canada has come under threat from the United States, its nearest neighbour, with Donald Trump saying it wanted Canada to be the 51st state, and Canadians wholeheartedly rejecting that. The King, in his role as the head of state of Canada, rightly had to show solidarity with Canada. At the same time, the UK government, like I said, wants to keep the US and the White House happy so we can have trade deals with free trade, keep our special relationship on side. So he has to be able to curry favour with President Trump as well. And we've also seen the King with President Zelensky of Ukraine lending his support to a wartime president, and also supporting him in other ways, wearing blue and yellow ties, having blue and yellow flowers at engagements, things like that. So the King is really asserting himself on the diplomatic stage, but it is difficult for him. Canadians especially are not very happy about this state visit going ahead. In fact, we know that Trump is going to come to Scotland later on this month, or perhaps at the beginning of August. And there was supposed to have been a meeting between the King and President Trump to plan this state visit. That has been kicked into the long grass, because even though they will be in the same country and the King will be in that same area of Scotland on his summer holiday. We're being told that the diaries cannot align for them to have this meeting. But let me tell you, if they really wanted to do that meeting, they could have. But this is partly about the king also recognizing the needs of Canada in this moment as well. So like I said, it's diplomat-in-chief, and the king is working hard at that role at the moment.
It's a very interesting diplomatic play of like three partners. But tell us about the mood in London ahead of the visit, perhaps maybe as different as it might be different from what we saw in 2019.
Well, in 2019, we saw significant protests when Donald Trump arrived in London. We saw that massive inflatable blimp of Donald Trump, which was floated across the London skyline. I'm sure someone somewhere is inflating that in time for September the 17th. Look, he is not hugely popular here in the United Kingdom, but also let's remember that this visit is taking place in Windsor rather than London, and Windsor is generally quieter. There's a different police force there as well. They're the ones that are going to have to really do the crowd control when it comes to this state visit. From what I've been reading on social media, I know already that there are lots of groups coming together to make sure that they will be there to protest this particular state visit. And also when he goes to Scotland as well. We saw protests when he's been there before, and we can expect to see them again. And I think when the political sphere that we are in with the ongoing war in Gaza as well, I think that will definitely fuel a lot of these protests also. So I think what we can expect is, yes, the pomp and the pageantry, the horses, the carriages, the state banquet, and all that ceremonial bells and whistles that we do so very well, but I think there will be dissenting voices which will be loud, and we know that Donald Trump doesn't like that very much.
Loud dissenting voices. Afia Hagen, thank you very much for giving us your evening once again. Thank you. Now to stories emanating from tariff imposed by President Donald Trump. EU trade ministers have agreed that U.S. President Donald Trump's 30% tariff announced on the European Union are absolutely unacceptable, and they're studying a new set of countermeasures to respond to the move. Now, the ministers met Monday in Brussels following Trump's surprise announcement of such hefty tariffs, which could have repercussions for governments, companies, and consumers on both sides of the Atlantic. The EU is America's biggest business partner and the world's largest trading bloc. Maros Sefcovic, the EU's trade representative in its talks with the US, said after the meeting that it was very obvious from the discussions today the 30% is absolutely unacceptable. He said that the Commission was sharing proposals with 27 member countries for the second list of goods accounting of some 72 billion euros worth of U.S. imports.
I intend to speak with my U.S. counterparts again later today, as I cannot imagine walking away without genuine effort.
In the meantime, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is in a reaction to the latest tariff threats, says her country hopes to reach an agreement with the U.S. Mexico is projecting confidence that it will fend off a new set of 30% tariffs that President Trump threatened to impose next month, with talks already underway to avert the worst. Sheinbaum also hit back at U.S. criticisms that her government was not doing enough to combat fentanyl, calling for the United States to do more to arrest drug traffickers on its own turf and stop the flow of weapons south across the border.
De aquí al 1 de agosto. Por eso yo mencioné el mismo sábado que pues tenemos una mesa de trabajo y esperamos llegar a un acuerdo. Ese es el planteamiento. Ahí vienen también temas relacionados con el fentanilo y la seguridad. En ese caso también ya hay avanzado un acuerdo, siempre en el marco de respeto a nuestra soberanía. Entonces, ese es, digamos, y con la parte que le corresponde a Estados Unidos. Hay colaboración, hay coordinación, pero una parte nos corresponde a nosotros en nuestro territorio para que no pase droga de aquí a allá, pero a ellos les corresponde también una parte. Y eso es lo que está asentándose en este acuerdo de coordinación y colaboración. Es una...
Meanwhile, Chinese customs representative Wang Lingjun has announced that the tariff truce between the U.S. and China was hard-won. Lingjun spoke at a conference that Beijing hopes the U.S. will continue to work together with China in the same direction. His comments come as official data shows China's exports rose more than expected in June after Washington and Beijing agreed a tentative deal to lower swinging tariffs on each other.
中方院再次强调，日瑞瓦共识和伦敦框架来之不易，讹诈胁迫没有出路，对话合作才是正道。希望美方继续同中方相向而行，让合作成为中美经贸的主旋律，推动全球贸易体系重回公平与开放的轨道，为全球经济复苏和增长。
Still, in China, the European Union is seeking fair competition with China and not a race to the bottom in wages and environmental standards. Deep factions or frictions exist over economic relations between the 27-nation bloc and China. Brussels is worried that a manufacturing glut propelled by massive state subsidies could add to a yawning trade deficit and result in a flood of cheap Chinese goods undercutting European firms. Speaking during a visit to Beijing ahead of a major EU-China summit in the city this month, Teresa Ribera dismissed China's claims that the bloc was engaging in protectionism. The EU imposed extra import taxes of up to 35% on China on Chinese electric vehicle imports in October and has investigated Chinese-owned solar panel manufacturers.
I think it is fair to say that, yes, we may benefit in the very short term, but it could kill the possibility to keep on investing. It is fair if it is fair competition. It is not so fair if there is no fair competition. We Europeans don't want to go down the race towards low incomes, lower labor rights, or lower environmental standards. We have been working hard to ensure proper competition and proper safeguard in our own internal market. So it is obvious that we could not be in a good position if there could be a kind of overflooding in our markets that could undermine with prices that do not reflect the real cost. What it could be killing the possibility for our industry to keep on moving and to keep the attractiveness to reinvest in further innovation in new technology. I would love to have a much more clear commitment coming from the US, and I would like to see much more commitment coming from every single geography, including China, of course. Very honestly, I don't think that we have witnessed many occasions in the past where a big economy, a big country, decides to isolate in such a relevant manner. So contesting the very main principle, value, culture of its entire nation, which was built thanks to the migration. Challenging the capacity to relate to third countries. So contesting the multilateral system, cutting the capacity of their administration to understand what it is going on or participating in the big debates in the international agenda, and even worse, being able to cut the ties to the global value chains as if it could be the mean to recover or to work in an isolated way to produce their goods and services. So it is a pity. Pity in terms of the climate action, because we need everybody doing his, her best. But the important message is that we, the rest, need to keep on doing our best. What does this mean for China? Well, I guess that the Chinese may think that the United States have given them a great opportunity to be much more relevant.
Now, dozens of people have been killed in armed clashes between Sunni Bedouin tribal fighters and Druze militia in southern Syria. The violence erupted in the predominantly Druze city in the province of Soweto on Sunday, 2 days after a Druze merchant was reportedly abducted on the highway to Damascus. The Interior Minister said security forces had been deployed to restore calm, but fighting continues in western part of the province on Monday. It is the latest outbreak of deadly sectarian violence in the country since Islamist-led rebel forces overthrew President Bashar al-Assad in December. Syria's many minority communities, including the Druze, whose religion is an offshoot of Shia Islam, with its own unique identity and beliefs, have expressed concerns over the new authorities' pledges to protect them. Iran has said it had no specific date for a meeting with the United States on Tehran's nuclear program following a war with Israel that had derailed negotiations. Iran had been negotiating with the United States before Israel began strikes on its nuclear facilities last month, which Washington later joined. Arakchi and Witkoff met 5 times starting in April without concluding a deal before Israel launched surprise attacks on June 13, starting a 12-day war. France on Monday celebrated its Bastille Day national holiday with an annual military parade in Paris, marking its biggest national holiday with a military parade, including 7,000 troops marching on all riding on horseback and in armored vehicles. The event held along Paris-famed Champs-Élysées, or Élysées, with the official inauguration of President Emmanuel Macron. Fighter jets also flew overhead, trailing smoke in red, white, and blue, the colors of the French flag. Prabowo Subianto, Indonesia's president, also joined the ceremony as part of a French tradition of inviting a country of honor as a special guest every single year. Finally on the news, a dozen Japanese contestants and their foreign counterparts have lit up an arena in Tokyo, the Japanese capital. They are vying for the crown of the best hairdresser in the world as they show off their skills surrounded by national flags and the blare of hip-hop tunes. Well, who says a decent haircut isn't just as great an artwork? That's all on Beyond the Continent. Remember, you may send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number on your screens. Now, and do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Evo TV, and of course, on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.